we're going to talk more about what all of this has to do, this kind of sort of soft law violation, because there's some kind of a moral ethic believed that, well, America has all these collective sins, it has all of these collective issues, and so on and so forth. Well, then if it's a really low likelihood that you're going to get prosecuted, especially if no one's ever prosecuted you under these laws, then what are we going to see? Well, you're going to see more individuals commit crimes more flagrantly and be proud of doing so. And this does bring us back to Pramila Jayapal. Radio crew, we're going to send you guys over to the commercial side. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, this does bring us back to Pramila, because in her statement, when she talks about trying to bring oil to Cuba, she talks about these conversations that she's having with the Russian delegation and the Chinese delegation and all other kinds of delegations to attempt to smuggle oil through the U.S. trade embargo to Cuba. So again, as a quick reminder, Pramila Jayapal talking through this.
In January,
we're going to cut forward to where she starts diving into some of the details on the conversations that she's having. And she's already morally justified it. There's a humanitarian crisis. So if I violate the law, well, I did it with the best of intentions.
I was in conversations with the ambassadors from Mexico and some other places, and I know other countries in Latin America are trying to figure out how to get oil there. But it is
the correct answer legally, by the way. How do you get oil to Cuba? Which, by the way, you guys do realize the oil doesn't go to the people of Cuba, right? It's not as though the ship pulls up and then the Cuban regime is just out there handing out jerry cans to everybody that they see. No. The oil is going to the regime, just like the solar panels that were dropped off along with other humanitarian aid. The regime takes it because that is what communist regimes, and they will tell you this, the regime will take it because they need to inspect it for foreign influence and spies and the boogity, whatever. So Jayapal here is coordinating with foreign governments to bypass, to move through the constitutionally levied authority by the duly elected president of the United States, which has been recently clarified and upheld by the Supreme Court's majority decisions.
Crisis beyond imagination. Just this past Friday on May 1st, Trump signed a broad executive order that widens sanctions and allows for new penalties similar to what we have for Iran and Russia against foreign banks and firms that are dealing with Cuba. And it also reinforces the ban on U.S. tourism. I have called these sanctions an economic bombing of the infrastructure of Cuba.
Okay, no matter what little analogies and little logistical whatevers that you come up with, that does not change that you have violated the law. When you are admitting to speaking with foreign ambassadors to strategize how the United States embargo on trade to the communist regime of Cuba can be undermined and bypassed, you are violating not just one law, but several.
It is illegal. It is against the war. We've been talking about this in Iran, obviously, to bomb the infrastructure of any country. That is against international law. This is
the United States, and the United States Congress is not subject to international law. Under international law, what do you mean here? Do you mean Interpol? Those are different statutes than the statutes that are upheld in Geneva, which are different than the statutes that are upheld by the United Nations. And there are different sets of law statutes for the United Nations Security Council from just the standard members. Whom are you citing here?
Essentially doing the same thing. It is bombing the infrastructure of Cuba with economic sanctions that essentially ensure that the infrastructure collapses.
Now, she sounds like she at least has a little bit of an idea about what's going on in Cuba here. Why is this a big deal? She is a member of the following committee. She's a member of the House Judiciary. She is a member of the Immigration Subcommittee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, the Budget Committee, the House Steering and Policy Committee. She has access to sensitive and classified materials regarding the State Department and foreign countries, including enemies of the United States openly declared by Congress, including the Cuban communist regime. If you've watched the show before, you know that is not something normally that I agree when people throw around the term treason. There is a connotative use and a denotative use. The actual legal definition of treason is to aid and abet the declared enemies of the United States of America, coordinating, strategizing with foreign powers to undermine the commander-in-chief against a declared enemy of the United States is, in fact, the legal standard and definition of treason. But it is not, as you'll notice by the Chiron text on the bottom of the screen, not what would be the worst bit here for her. See, Pramila has about as textbook as you can say, and there are several who are far wiser than I am who have made it clear this is probably the textbook definition of a violation of the Logan Act. The Logan Act, that's 18 U.S. Code Section 953, private correspondence with foreign governments. Quote, any citizen of the United States, whether he or she may be, who without authority of the U.S., directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse, that's for you, Eric Swalwell, with any foreign government or any officer or agent thereof, ambassadors, with intent to influence the measures or conduct any foreign government or any officer in relation to any disputes or controversies with the United States. Again, disputes and controversies by the United States are managed by one of three groups, and really one of two groups. The executive branch, meaning through the State Department or through the President of the United States. Also, a little bit through, OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, but that also kind of fits under the Treasury and the State Department. All of that under the President. And number two, the Senate when they are ratifying treaties. Now, the House of Representatives can send forward legislation on individualized pieces of bills, regulation changes, new rules set up that changes how the U.S. interacts with a foreign country, but that has to be unified, passed by the House and the Senate, and then signed into law by the President of the United States. So it says, to defeat the measures of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. Now, here's the downer for those of you who might be, excitedly going, we got him, finally. Here's the issue, and there are two of them in this case. Number one, we have never seen a conviction on the Logan Act. There have only been 2 indictments in U.S. history, only 2 of them. Now, these 2 indictments were back in 1803 and 1852. Now, to be fair, I do want to be fair here, we have never seen a violation this egregious, at least that I can think of in recent years. That's not the worst of her concerns. And this is the part where Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, and maybe the assistant attorney general, also with a suggestion by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, might intervene here. According to the Office of Foreign Assets Control, regulations explicitly prohibit not just violations of the Logan Act or essentially trying to break the U.S. embargo on an active enemy of the United States, but also attempting to, causing violations, and conspiracies to violate sanctions. The United States has sanctions and more sanctions on Cuba. And by the way, this applies to most country-specific programs of which Iran, Cuba, North Korea, Russia are explicitly stated. Cuba is like prime real estate. It was JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can't do for Cuba. I mean, that's kind of a big thing. Now, again, I see the comments that are coming in, and I wholeheartedly agree. For example, from Julie Dykman, very kindly, $10 super chat said, quote, nothing will happen to her. She's just a politician. Nothing will happen to her. She won't spend an hour in jail. Make that she won't spend 5 minutes in jail. And, to mark her words. And she may be right. However, and I do mean however, this is what you need to know. There have been quite a few civil and criminal penalties that have been levied against members of Congress, including Democrats, violations in which a senator or a representative will attempt to coordinate with a foreign government against the wishes of the United States. We saw this, and it led to the expulsion and the arrest of Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey in the last couple of years. Additionally, right now we have several active investigations and criminal indictments. This is criminal indictment territory. This isn't even a bring her before the committee and complain about it. Nope. And what we see right now, especially after Pramila Jayapal's actions, it is a revolutionary egging on. Now, you say, Tony, you're making all of these promises here, and I'm not. Please don't think that I am making any promises. I'm just letting you know that this is an opportunity where the ball is teed up and Todd Blanche is really looking to swing.